I never expected that a family reunion at 43 could bring about such significant changes in my life. I would like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Lara, and until recently, I felt quite confident in my abilities. I have shared my life with Greg for 16 years. Our relationship is strong. We don't have children. We have fulfilling careers and appreciate a comfortable life. It seems our routine had settled into a comfortable pattern, and I didn't think much of it until that night when things changed in a surprising way. On a typical Saturday, Monica, my sister in law, decided to host a gathering at her home to celebrate the 23rd birthday of her eldest son, Jake. Jake has always been known for his charm, his sharp mind, and his impressive maturity for someone his age. We've always shared a unique connection. He is my favorite nephew, and I feel a special bond with him as his aunt. Without children, Jake filled that little void in my life. As we gathered around the table, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and warmth. The dinner was delightful, the wine was generously offered, and we all had a lovely evening together. Greg, my husband, was quite relaxed. He enjoys unwinding with a glass of wine during family gatherings. He enjoys himself at these events sometimes a bit more than usual. As the night came to a close, he found it a bit challenging to keep his eyes open. In a gentle tone, he shared with Laura that he could use some help getting to the vehicle, his eyes reflecting a sense of uncertainty. I took a deep breath as I reflected on what had turned into a family routine. At that moment, Jake arrived with a look of care on his face. He kindly asked his Aunt Laura if she would like some assistance. At that moment, there was a shift in the familiar dynamics of our family reunions, as if the atmosphere had become a bit more lively. Thank you so much, my friend. I expressed my gratitude for the support and shared that my uncle was under the weather. Thanks to Jake's help, we were able to find Greg in the vehicle. His soft sounds blended with the hum of the engine in a unique way as we started to move. During our 25-minute journey, Jake and I had a nice conversation about his academic training and future goals. It was natural for him to feel a sense of pride and appreciation for the person he was becoming. When we got home, we worked together to assist Greg in getting out of the car and settling him into his bed. We carefully laid him down and took off his shoes, while Jake waited at the entrance of the room, honoring our moment and allowing us to have our space. I shared my appreciation, not realizing that those heartfelt words would lead to a meaningful change in my life. As I stepped out of the room, I softly spoke the name, Ethan, and quietly closed the door behind me. "There isn't anything, dear Aunt Laura." With a warm smile, he responded, "I'm here for you, always." We walked to the kitchen, and when he handed me a glass of water, I sensed a bit of concern from him, as if he had something on his mind that he wanted to share, but might find it a little challenging to put into words. "How are you doing, dear?" I gently asked him if he was feeling a bit nervous. After enjoying a refreshing drink of water, Ethan felt ready to share his thoughts. "Aunt Laura, I'd like to chat with you about something special. Would you mind giving me a moment, please?" I felt a bit concerned when I noticed his tone was quite serious. "Absolutely, Ethan, you can feel comfortable sharing anything with me, right?" I asked about what was going on, aiming to provide reassurance. He gently ran his hand through his hair, a comforting habit from his childhood. He started to share that the situation was challenging. In that moment, I felt a warmth seeing my dear Ethan express affection. "What a delight, dear. What makes you feel a bit unsettled?" I gently asked him if he was still in touch. A soft chuckle slipped from Ethan's lips. "It would be wonderful if it were that simple, dear aunt. There is a noticeable age difference between her and me." I let him know that it was perfectly fine, hoping to lift his spirits. Ethan felt a bit anxious and spoke softly. Additionally, he is in a relationship with his husband. I felt a sense of surprise when I received unexpected news. I found it challenging to come to terms with what I heard. "Ethan, I find myself at a loss for words." I asked him about how sure he felt about his emotions during this complicated situation, feeling a bit unsettled inside. He agreed with a sense of purpose. "Aunt, I feel really confident about this decision. I care for her in a way that feels unique and special to me. It's possible that you might be playing a role in the changes happening within a marital relationship, a group of family members. Of course, I see where you're coming from. Aunt, he expressed his belief with certainty. I'm here for you. As he watched, he noticed the tension mirrored in his gaze. For a while now, I've been experiencing these feelings, and I feel like I've come to a point where I need to address them. I need to share this with him. I would appreciate being informed about this information. I felt a mix of support and a bit of unease regarding my nephew, considering the depth of feelings he experiences at such a young age. Everything seemed to have a sense of clarity and fulfillment. Ethan, I can see how deeply you feel about this. It's important to think about the potential outcomes. If you choose to share this with him, how do you think it might affect things? I asked him about how it might affect the rest of the family. He paused for a moment, as if he were taking a moment to find the right words to share something more. Then he raised his eyes and maintained visual contact with me in a way that surprised me. Laura, I never imagined that someone like you would have such a meaningful influence on my life. In that moment, everything felt still. I felt as though the ground gently shifted beneath me, leading me into a vast open space. It seemed hard to believe. I gently asked Ethan, and he instinctively stepped back towards the kitchen counter. He approached me with a look that stirred emotions I wasn't quite ready to acknowledge. You've always been someone I deeply admire and respect. From the moment I began to remember, my heart has held a special place for you. Initially, I believed it was simply admiration, the typical fondness a nephew feels for his beloved aunt. As time went on, I came to understand that it held a deeper significance. You are truly a wonderful, intelligent, and remarkable person I've had the joy of meeting. My thoughts were a bit jumbled, and I found it challenging to grasp what I was hearing. I felt as though I was caught in an unsettling situation, almost like a bad dream or a lighthearted jest gone wrong. However, the thoughtful expression in Ethan's eyes indicated that the situation was important. Ethan, it seems like you're having a hard time being serious. This seems to be a misunderstanding at its core. It might be helpful to reflect on this situation. I am your aunt married to your uncle, and there is a 31-year difference in our ages. I expressed my feelings by saying this is not quite right. Even though I sensed a bit of uncertainty in my words, he took a step closer, bridging the distance between us. I see where you're coming from, family member. I understand it may seem unusual, but I want to assure you that I have made efforts to address the situation. Even though I've been on dates with various women, I've found it challenging to move on from thoughts of you. It hasn't been successful. The connection I feel with you is meaningful, but it must remain grounded in respect. He paused for a moment, visibly emotional, before stepping back. I felt quite still, finding it challenging to move or think clearly. Ethan, it's important for you to recognize that this situation isn't quite right. We belong to the same family. I share the same age as your birth mother. When I saw Ethan in the kitchen, I noticed a bit of a tense atmosphere. I quietly remarked, feeling a sense of wonder at how charming the boy who once playfully crawled on my legs had grown up. At this moment, he had grown into a strong young man with a captivating gaze that could warm even the iciest hearts. I recognized the importance of the situation, and I found it a bit challenging to gather my thoughts. Ethan, it would be best for you to step back. I gently asked him to let go of our previous conversation, yet he stayed still. Instead, he moved a bit closer, lessening the distance that was between us. The aroma of the wine blended gently with the scent of his perfume, creating a sense of warmth that surrounded him. I asked Ethan earnestly, even though I wasn't entirely clear about what I was hoping for. This is how a change that could really make a difference came about. He approached me with a gaze that felt a bit overwhelming, causing me to take a step back. The atmosphere was filled with a noticeable energy. In a moment, I found myself still, not quite able to react. However, I was taken aback to realize that moment of blurred emotions made me realize how far we had let things go. I felt as though a door that had been closed for quite some time gently opened. A wave of emotions that I believed I had moved past gently surfaced. I gently reached out to him, intertwining my fingers with his mane, savoring that moment as it extended beyond my awareness. I needed a moment to collect myself before stepping back. We were both a bit overwhelmed, and the significance of what happened gently washed over me. I asked myself, feeling a mix of confusion and regret, what have we created, my friend? Ethan, in that moment, showed a mix of deep feelings, and his eyes sparkled with a sincerity that was hard to miss. He shared with his Aunt Laura that what occurred was a reflection of his feelings for her. I took a deep breath, aiming to find calm and gather my thoughts amidst the surrounding noise. Ethan, it seems there was an oversight. I appreciate your feelings, and I think it's important for us to find a way to prevent this situation from happening again. I attempted to create some space for myself, but his intense gaze caught me off guard. Aunt, I see that you are feeling quite scared, but what happened does hold significance. We both shared that feeling in that moment. I let out a gentle sigh, hoping to discover the right words. Ethan, I see that you're feeling a lot right now, but we need to address this situation together. This situation might affect our family relationship. It's important to take a moment for meditation and recognize that even though there may be some confusion, we can choose not to let it affect our daily lives or those around us. After a short pause, he worked to understand the information they were sharing with him. He shared his feelings and noted that he never meant to create any issues, while gently attempting to ease the tension between them with a soft smile. Thank you for your kindness and support. I gently reminded Ethan that he is a wonderful person, and I assured him that the love and happiness he seeks will come into his life, even if this isn't the right path for him at the moment. After a gentle pause, Ethan took a step back, allowing me some time to think quietly on my own. He had a thoughtful expression, and there was a sense of understanding that felt reassuring. I appreciate your perspective, dear Aunt Laura. He shared his commitment to doing his best to navigate the situation, acknowledging the challenge ahead. Seeing him in a moment of vulnerability brought a sense of heaviness to my heart. In that moment, I understood how valuable it is to keep strength, not just for our shared well-being, but also for the peace within our family. I appreciate you, Ethan. I have confidence in your abilities to make it happen. I responded with a hopeful outlook, recognizing that being young means there's a wonderful future ahead to build something lovely with someone who shares the journey with you. A gentle smile appeared on his face, while his eyes held a hint of wistfulness. I will always hope for the best for you, dear aunt. If you ever need assistance down the line, I'm here for you just as you will be for me. He shared his thoughts, creating in me a gentle sense of calm and reflection. After a warm and gentle goodbye hug, he left the kitchen. I noticed a gentle knock at the main entrance, followed by the sound of his car driving off into the quiet night. I stayed in that place, alone, reflecting on the events of that night. I felt a bit unsettled, and it made it hard for me to rest. A flurry of thoughts gently filled my mind. A sense of reflection, a touch of melancholy, and an unfamiliar feeling of emptiness that I couldn't quite understand. I felt confident in my choice to set limits, even though I was also reflecting on the possibilities of what might have occurred. As I drifted into a peaceful sleep, I reflected on each moment and every conversation I had with Ethan. Faced with a mix of concern for my loved ones and a sense of responsibility, I realized that the best choice was to cherish this as a personal memory, something that would gently remain within our family circle. The following day, the person woke up feeling a bit uneasy, and when I inquired about the previous night, I shared only the necessary details. Ethan was always there for me. He is a wonderful person. Whenever my sister reached out to me, I felt a little flutter of concern, hoping that Ethan wouldn't share anything or that the truth would stay under wraps. He chose to keep his distance, possibly taking time to process the events in his own way. In the family environment, I found some situations to be a bit challenging for me. I made an effort to spend less time alone with Ethan, even though I noticed his attempts to be mature and polite. The attitude of that person brought me comfort and a sense of hope, as it seemed he was doing his best to move forward while I navigated the mix of feelings that came from that kiss. Ethan seemed to take a growing interest in me, as if he had sensed that something was on my mind. He started suggesting outings, offering small gestures, and looking for ways to reconnect with me. In various circumstances, those movements might have been enjoyable, but at that moment, they simply reminded me of the important responsibility I needed to uphold. As the days went by, the feeling of being on a wobbly rope grew more noticeable. I hoped for the chance to fully trust Ken, to share everything with him, and believe that the situation would be resolved easily. Even so, I recognized that the situation was quite a bit more complex. The pieces of this puzzle didn't quite align, and the outcomes of what occurred extended beyond just my experience. On the other hand, Ethan decided to keep a bit of distance, though at times his gaze was so intense that it left me with a sense of anticipation for something I couldn't quite grasp. I did my best to stay calm, but it seemed to add to the weight I was experiencing, making the thoughts in my mind feel even more pronounced. Whenever I saw him, I found myself reflecting on the past and the emotions that lingered there. However, life continued, and Kent continued to express a love that, while reassuring, seemed to deepen my sense of guilt. He used to hug me more often, and when he intertwined our hands, he sensed the growing strength of my confidence. At times, I wished he could look past the present moment and grasp my concerns and the decisions I had taken. Even so, I understood that sharing that with him wouldn't be straightforward. At night, I felt as though time was standing still. In the stillness of the night, I found myself reflecting on how long I could carry this burden without feeling overwhelmed. The relationship with Ethan grew a bit more intricate, while with Kent, I experienced a sense of stability that I wanted to maintain. I found myself caught in a mix of misunderstandings, which made what initially seemed like a small distraction more complex. How far can I go in my progress while still feeling secure? As the days passed, I found it a bit more challenging to keep up with my appearance. Whenever Kent smiled or showed affection, the feelings he held inside seemed to grow stronger. On certain nights, I found myself awake, gently pondering how things had become so intertwined. I found myself contemplating how to progress without feeling like everything might unravel, as if the pieces of my world could gently shift, taking along the familiar comforts I hold dear. Ethan was mindful of the space she needed, even though her expressions conveyed more than she could say. Although we shared a bond, her presence often felt like a gentle reminder of the past, creating a soft overlap between what was and what is. However, Ethan had a charm that continued to draw me in, making me think that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for something more. With Kent, things felt unique. I appreciated his consistent support and his heartfelt care. Sometimes I felt a bit overwhelmed by that passion, as if every gesture of affection he offered was a gentle reminder of what might be lost if things didn't go as planned. Taking care of him and keeping our family together started to feel a bit more challenging over time. At times, I find myself imagining the possibility of gently moving away to a peaceful place, away from the usual surroundings. However, I decided to pass on it. His spontaneous nature sometimes influenced the choices he made in our relationship. He understood that the path he had selected carried some risks and would lead to certain outcomes. I needed to navigate this situation thoughtfully, ensuring that my actions didn't bring any discomfort to others due to my choices. It became increasingly challenging to navigate the situation as I found myself caught between my feelings for Kent and the issues that Ethan had brought into my life. One afternoon, while spending time with Ethan, I noticed the atmosphere felt a bit more intense. His gaze was focused, as if he was patiently awaiting my response, and the quiet moment we shared felt significant, almost palpable. The atmosphere felt filled with reflections of our shared experiences. Ethan was the one who broke the calmness that surrounded us. He started by expressing that he hopes you feel at ease and he simply wants you to know that he is here to chat whenever you might need him. The words, straightforward and sincere, truly moved me. I wondered about his understanding and how we were able to navigate this situation without it turning into a big mess between us. However, at that moment, I felt a sense of hesitation wash over me. Could it be a good moment to take a step back? I wondered if it was the right time to share my feelings, or if I should keep my inner thoughts to myself and manage that uncertainty for a while longer. It was a challenging situation, like a rope that was feeling quite stretched. I was concerned that the right moment might arrive when I wouldn't be able to address it anymore. As time passed, the atmosphere among us became a bit more strained, with everyone hesitating to talk about what we were really going through. Kent continued to express his usual kindness and warmth, though his behavior left me with a deeper sense of guilt. The smiles had become less spontaneous, appearing more like a way to maintain a sense of calm amid the uncertainty. In contrast, Ethan appeared to be deeply engaged in his own thoughts, and his silence felt more pronounced than before. Occasionally, we crossed paths in the corridors, and our eyes would meet for a brief moment. That instant was just enough for all the memories we shared to come back to mind with the same warmth as before. However, his silence was both intriguing and comforting as Kent chose not to say anything. Maybe he had come to understand that there were no words left that could change the situation. After a minor disagreement, but filled with some tension with Kent, I happened to run into Ethan in the kitchen that afternoon. We had an unexpected meeting, and the atmosphere around us was filled with feelings that were hard to put into words. I gently moved to the window and looked outside, hoping to find a peaceful moment amidst the swirl of emotions I was experiencing. In that moment, Ethan gently reassured me, letting me know that he wanted me to feel at ease with the situation. The words he spoke, though straightforward, resonated with me, deepening my appreciation for the richness of our feelings and the situation we found ourselves in. Once again, I noticed that we were surrounded by a sea of unexpressed emotions, where every action and moment of silence held a special significance. Yet I found myself contemplating which direction to choose, how to approach the situation, and how to care for my loved ones. This left me with a sense of uncertainty that felt more intense than before. By gently breaking the silence with his calm yet assured voice, Ethan made it clear that he wanted to avoid any misunderstandings, reassuring that his feelings for the other person remained unchanged. The words resonated with me in an unexpected and impactful manner. I watched closely, hoping to find in his eyes any hint that might suggest an answer. However, I sensed a mix of confusion and discomfort. In that moment, I felt a bit confused and found it challenging to gather my thoughts or respond appropriately. Ethan, I'm not quite sure how to approach this situation, I responded softly, sharing my confusion about the situation. I hope that things can return to how they were before, even though it feels a bit out of reach right now. He came over, gently, maintaining a respectful distance, yet close enough to bring me a sense of comfort. Even with a hint of sorrow in his eyes, he appeared to be seeking a way to connect and navigate through this intricate web of feelings. Ethan shared his thoughts calmly, showing that he was also working through his feelings to ensure we could continue to nurture what we had created together. My heart was beating quite strongly. It was really important to me to keep things simple and straightforward. I really wanted to hold on to Kent and cherish what we had created together. However, it was evident that not addressing what happened to Ethan would only add to my feelings of discomfort. The situation continued as it was. Would you be able to understand this situation and assist me in managing it gently? In the residence, there was a gentle stillness that felt a bit heavy on my shoulders. Kent headed out for work in the morning while Ethan decided to spend the day with his friends. I chose to use that quiet moment to think and gently face the truth I had been putting off. I settled onto the sofa, reflecting on the walls that had seen many happy times and shared smiles. In that moment, everything took on a different view. I felt a sense of responsibility that weighed on me, and the desire to care for my family sometimes made it hard to find restful sleep. In that way, I chose to embrace what is real. I felt it was time to be open about what had happened instead of just keeping up appearances. I realized that having a conversation with Kent was something that would happen, even though I recognized that our relationship would shift in some ways. I made the choice to pick up the phone and dial his number. The bell rang softly, each moment stretching gently towards a significant time that could change my perspective. Finally, I was able to hear his voice on the other end of the line. "Hello, dear. Hope you're doing well," he asked in his usual warm manner. "Kent, I think it would be good for us to chat," I responded, aiming to maintain a sense of engagement in my voice and calmness in my demeanor. A gentle silence filled the space on the other end of the call. He asked about the topic, noticing the weight in my voice. "This is an important topic." I kindly asked him to come home right away as I was aware that a storm was on its way. After ending the call, I stayed quiet, noticing how each moment seemed to stretch out a bit longer. Finally, I noticed the sound of the door opening. As I entered, Kent had a look of care on his face. He asked about what was going on as he came closer to where I was. I focused on him, looking for the right expressions, knowing that my message would be straightforward. Kent, there's something significant I'd like to share with you. A situation that occurred between Ethan and me. As I spoke those words, I noticed a slight quiver in my voice. And in that moment, I understood that what I was about to share could bring about a lasting change in our lives. I felt a bit unsettled and unsure in my thoughts. It was important to be open and truthful. There wasn't really another option.